A recent investigation found that Tesla vehicles are failing at an alarming rate. Now the Senate's demanding answers from the company about what they knew and when they knew it. Yeah, I got to tell you something. I got problems with this story. Why don't you lay the story out, and I want to tell you what my problems are, okay?
Yeah, recently Reuters came out. They did this big investigation. They found that there were, steering failures with these Tesla vehicles that would almost render the entire vehicle inoperable, would become a danger on the roadway. So Reuters goes in, does their due diligence, looks at the internal documents, talks to people that work there, and what they said was, it looks like Tesla's trying to shift responsibility from themselves and just saying, nope, the drivers, like thousands of drivers, all screwed up in the same way. So that's where we're at with what we know.
This is almost unprecedented. I don't know if you realize that. Coming from Congress. Now, they've got, Musk has got a big old zero on his back. He's got a big target on his back. Let me give you the truth, the other side of the story. Faulty hidden defects are American cars, Japanese cars, they're everywhere. Just some examples that I saw before we came in here, where you had unintended acceleration in Toyotas, killed 300 people. That went on for years. And the complaint after complaint went to Congress, went to regulators, they did nothing. Faulty ignition switches that caused the car to shut down and the driver would lose control of the car completely. That was complained about. You had regulators, you had Congress. No word, nothing was done. Okay? So what's the difference here? Defective tires, the Firestone case, you remember that?
God.
Do you have any idea how long people, and I was 700 injuries on the faulty ignition, 300 people died. I mean, we're talking about far worse than we're seeing with the Tesla case. But the Democrats at this point hate this guy. And they're going after him, and now this is what he's faced with. I just think, if you're going to do it with everybody. Don't center on Musk. The other one was remember the bucking Bronco?
Yeah.
That was just, what it killed? It killed 1,000 people.
Yeah.
1,000 people. And Congress knew about it, regulators knew about it. The Pinto exploding gas tank, same deal. Plenty of notice what was going on, but Congress did nothing, and now they're going after him. You got to play fair. You got to say this is good for you and it's good for everybody, and you can't just pick favorites.
Right, I agree with you 100% on that. And look, I understand Musk, he's got his political leanings, and yeah, he has pissed off the Democrats, and they should be looking at this, but like you say, they ought to be looking at every single one.
Exactly.
There isn't a single automaker in the United States that hasn't at some point, probably some of them even today, that are covering up significant dangers that eventually are going to come across your desk here at the law firm, and you're going to have to deal with it and see the documents. But I also want to point out, by the way, the GM ignition switch, so everybody understands, GM saved $2.13 per vehicle on that ignition switch that killed hundreds of people.
300
for
people.
Less than $3 is what they saved. But look, we could be looking at something similar with Tesla. I mean, it has all the signs of, they probably knew something was screwed up, and this many people could get hurt. It's what they all do. But if you're going to call them in and say, come answer questions, say, oh, by the way, after you, we've got GM, Ford, Toyota, everybody coming in after.
Play fair. Yeah. As you know, I'm no big fan of Musk. Right. I'm just saying, look, how many times have you seen us involved with a lawsuit that's outrageous? I mean, completely crazy, like the CPAP lawsuit that's going on right now that we're handling. That's the mask that you put on because you have apnea. Hell, it's causing all kinds of lung diseases. So we take that kind of information, we put it in a box, we send it to the right people. Invariably, they do nothing about it, okay? So this bothers me a lot because this is targeting. And when you start targeting and weaponizing the process, that's all that's happened here. Whether I like him or not, you know what? Doesn't make any difference. Let's be fair across the table.
I want to touch back on something you said because you brought up the issue of IEDs. Mm-hmm. And when we're dealing with these terrorism lawsuits, they're very complicated. And it's very difficult because you've got to be able to prove that the money that came from this bank that went to this individual was used to purchase the materials. And with the IEDs, we're talking about improvised explosive devices. So they buy bits and pieces here. They buy a few more pieces here, and a couple here, and they lay them out almost like landmines. You know, we saw the disaster of landmines during the Vietnam War, and we're almost back in that era, and it's much more difficult to track these things here, isn't it?
Half to 2/3 of all Americans that are killed or lose limbs in areas like Iraq or Afghanistan, half of them are from IEDs that were financed by organizations like this. Matter of fact, that's something Chris has done, is he's put together this really sophisticated way to find out what the story is behind there.
Yeah, in terms of Iraq and Afghanistan, we have established that Iran was providing the militant groups in those areas with sophisticated IEDs, with the training to assemble them, with the component parts to assemble them. The sophistication far exceeds what one might think when they hear improvised explosive device. There are particular types of IEDs that are remote controlled, radio detonated, can be detonated from 1,000 miles away from a cell phone, and they involve high, very expensive, specific types of metal that will melt in the explosion and cause devastating injuries, that can target armored vehicles and defeat the most armored vehicles, at least in the U.S. military's lineup, and do so and cause catastrophic injuries. With the difference between a landmine and an IED is a landmine is something that's passive, that's laid in the ground and can essentially blow up when anything steps on it or triggers it. These IEDs are put in a roadway or along a path or a what we'll call a choke point in traffic, and those who are using that IED can target specifically the vehicle in a convoy carrying a particular individual that they're wanting to target, and they have the ability and the training to do that time and time again and over and over and over, and then change their tactics, techniques, and procedures to address the countermeasures that are put in place. The level of sophistication, not only the individuals that are using those weapons, but the weapons themselves, requires extensive infrastructure, which requires extensive money, and then also access to the materials to create it. And that is where these legitimate banks or semi-legitimate companies or front companies come into play in creating the supply chain for organizations like Hamas and Al-Qaeda and the Taliban to have access to and place these and use these, sadly, so successfully against our troops.
What happened in Vietnam is they understood that the use of landmines, and we're coming up on Vietnam Veterans Day, for example, and the use of landmines were so effective. I mean, they devastated American soldiers. So what they did is they took the whole concept of landmine and they simply put it in, as Chris is talking about, into something. It's an IED. And what the book does, and I think the reason this is, you'll be interested in the book, is it has a character. He's a pararescue man. His name is Michael, and most people don't even know what they're called PJs. And the PJ is a specially trained special ops soldier. As a matter of fact, they try to find the special ops soldier that is best at independent operation. Started in Korea, they would have these PJs drop in from 40,000 feet in the halo dive, and then they move into the area to rescue pilots, rescue whoever had to be rescued. But these are independent operators. They're not like a SEAL team. Most of the time they operate, one or two of them will go into an area and rescue these folks. So in the book, in the series of books, Michael works for Nicholas Dichotomous, who works for that law firm. And so he speaks their language. And he understands exactly what's going on with the whole IED story. He understands what's going on with the financing. He's the guy who's kind of the front man in this litigation. And it's not just litigation. We're not in trial. We're in a fight for the life of everybody in the law firm by the end of the book.